Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Mariner of Spirit. I'm Greg, I'm your host, and we have a special guest tonight. And before we get to him, I'm going to go ahead and mention the people I support. And that's Plotographs with Tim Miley and his wife Lauren, who do a lot of fundraising for animals, and they do that via events that they hold every year in the paranormal community around the states, and they always have a great lineup of guests, and they do an awesome job when it comes to going ahead and coming through. I mean, they're always top notch, and they do a great job, and kudos to them. Secondly, it's Paranormal Kicks Cancer, PKC, and that's Chris Guskowski and Alex Wilkinson. And my guest, I will ask him a question or two about them, because that's where I originally met them. And they do money fundraising for cancer research, and they do it via a lot of events, and they do haunted houses and everything. So they're busier than to be with a Ben Stinger right now. So between doing that and going ahead and going around the haunted locations, like where our guest is from, they did that too, and they're great investigators. And I have to really check back in with them, because I've been out of touch with them now for quite some time, and they're great people. So, and then the only other thing that I mentioned is the authors that I support. And I know I'm going to miss somebody here tonight, because I know that I have another book. But anyway, it's Bruce Holliday, Tobias Wayland, Adam Benedict, Kathy Kressel, Barnaby Jones, Sherilyn Cotter, Dr. Heatherly Langdon, Lynn Monet, Ron Iacovetti, Victoria Munday, Tony Rathman, Natalie Jones, Patty Negri, Sylvia Schultz, Amelia Cotter, Rex Nielsen, David Sloan, Christina Bloom, and D.A. Wysong and Joseph Hallant. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in my friend Ronnie D., and he's president of the Old South Pittsburgh Hospital in Old South Pitt, Tennessee. Hey, great to have you, Ron.
Howdy, Greg. How are you? Hey, we got to
Good.
start off with the night with busier than a bee with a bent stinger. Love it. Never heard that before.
You're kidding.
Nope. No, sir, I didn't. So that made me chuckle a little bit here backstage.
Well,
Never heard that before.
We're trying to keep it on the light side, because we know you have a great deal of responsibility with your two locations. Plus, I had no idea that you were actually employed two at the same time, or that's probably your spot too, huh?
Oh, no. I actually do. I actually moved to Tennessee here about, well, full time now. It's been about 4 months. Had to get a job because needed health care, obviously. And the position I took is in a management role, and they give health care. And because anybody who's self-employed knows that, holy cow, trying to get a health care policy, yeah, it's brutal. So yeah, so I work a full-time job and then have healthcare, and then obviously manage both of my locations with my staff over at South Pittsburgh and Harriman Hospital.
So how's everything been going over at the locations?
It's been great. We've been just kind of motoring along. Activity's been pretty much crazy as usual. This has been a really great year for meeting a lot of new investigators. Seems like there's kind of a new wave of people coming into the paranormal. So it's kind of been an exciting year, really, honestly. We have our normal investigators that come a couple times a year. But this year has been really kind of neat because, like I said, we've actually come across a lot of new groups, a lot of new people interested in the paranormal. And quite honestly, I thought maybe the paranormal was going to kind of fall off a little bit, primarily because there's not a lot of ghost shows out there anymore. A lot of people get really involved in it because they watch a show on TV, and that kind of starts their, I guess, what do you call it, down the path of paranormal. So I was kind of concerned. I was kind of concerned, once Travel Channel and Destination America and all that stopped, doing a lot of their ghost shows. Oh, my dog. Hey, doggy.
There you go.
But yeah, I kind of thought that was gonna kind of slow it down, but no, we're getting a new wave of investigators, a lot of younger kids, which I think is a lot of fun. And then of course us seasoned old veterans as well too. So it's been a very neat year.
Any specific locale that they're all coming from?
No, I mean it's
all over the place, huh?
Yeah, all over the place. I mean, obviously we've got our southern contingent that comes locally, but this year I want to say we've got some people who actually came from overseas. We've had people from New Zealand come. We had people from England come. We had some people from pretty much all over.
Oh,
so it's really kind of neat.
So, that had to be absolutely outstanding.
Oh, it is, especially, we generally don't talk to people when we take their bookings. It's generally done via email or text, and and then they pull up, and we make them sign the waivers and all the other stuff, and then they start speaking with that British accent or whatever, and you're kind of like, whoa, and then you dive deep into where they're from, and they're from all over, and it's kind of a neat situation. It's neat that the industry that we're in is so international.
Yeah, that's for sure. And you've done umpteen thousand interviews with all those shows over the years, and I got a chuckle because I saw you the other day, and I can't remember which one it was, but you were being interviewed on that, and it was like, oh, Ronnie's on again.
It's kind of funny because I don't claim to myself to be a celebrity or anything like that. I really don't. If you know me, I'm just one of those. Well, Greg, you've known me a long time. It's kind of fun and like to do what I do. And it was kind of funny. I was coming home from South Pittsburgh one year, going back to Chicago, and I go to the gas station and I'm pumping gas, and this couple is staring at me from the other gas pump, and I'm like, first thing I thought was my zipper undone, or I wasn't wearing did I put the wrong shirt on or something like that? And it just minded my own business. Well, the girl got enough, I guess, guts to walk up to me and say, "Hey, I know you." And I'm like, well, I think I was in Carbondale, Illinois, maybe. So it's pretty south of my house. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. I'm like, the likelihood of me bumping into you, 4 hours from home is pretty, what do you call it? So now they're like, no, we know you. We can't quite place it, blah, blah, blah. Well, then her husband or boyfriend comes over and says, you're the guy on TV. And I was like, well, I completely forgot. I'm like, oh, are you talking about, this show or that show? So it ended up, they recognized me from Destination Fear, and I was like, oh yeah, blah, blah. So we start talking and all other stuff. Well, then I go inside the gas station, and the gas station clerk asked me, yeah, you're on that TV show. And I'm like, at that point in time, I'm kind of embarrassed because I just, I'm just not that kind of a person. I'm kind of more, don't notice me, just kind of in the background kind of guy. And so then it was really weird because I've never had this happen. But the guy slips over like a piece of paper, says, will you sign your autograph? And I'm like, dude, I was just like I was on Destination Fear, like, for basically 5 minutes just explaining the hospital. I'm like, but, I was like, okay, sure, if you want me to. So, signed a little thing for him and whatever. And like I said, it was kind of neat doing that. But yeah, I've been on Destination Fear and Kindred Spirits and I don't know how many YouTube channels. And I really like just really discussing, like, I've been on your show quite a few times. I just, the passion for our locations, I think, is what people are really impressed the most with when, when they sit down and actually talk to me, because it is really a passion. It's, and Greg, we've talked about it a lot in the past too, that, it is paranormal, but it is also, they're historic locations that, that touch the lives of so many people while they were open. And I think that's what's really, really the kind of the really neat thing about it is that, just being able to keep that part of history alive. I mean, we don't have quite the story that, Waverly Hills or Trans-Allegheny has, but I mean, we were locations that were in rural areas of Tennessee that, so many people's lives depended on those locations being opened. And so to be able to share that and be able to share the stories of, a lot of the healthcare workers that shared stories to us, I think it's really remarkable. And to be able to share that, and then when people come in and get to experience something paranormal, I think is even really, it's just really kind of neat.
I know that for both of your locations, you always have top-notch teams that are in there to help people out when they first get there, and if they need to be guided, they're great people to do that. And I found that for myself, for being there, I don't know how, I think I've been there maybe 3 times,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. And I haven't been there for quite some time because I go where the rest of that group went. But I'm not with that group anymore. So now we're pretty much on our own. So we were going to go ahead and do the same thing. And we're going to come because I brought it up to the people and I said, this wouldn't be a bad trip in the spring to come down by you and do both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just to get back down there because I love Tennessee and I love the fact that you have so many haunted locations close to you, and you've got besides yourself, you've got uh, Miranda Young.
Oh yeah, right down the road from us. Yeah, they're great
Right
people.
down the
Miranda,
road,
Chris Sumner. Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to try to go ahead and have her come back on because I haven't had her on in about the same time I haven't had you on.
Yeah, they're right
And
down the road from us, the Scouts County Jail. It's an amazing location, and
yeah,
as you said, Chris and Miranda over there do just an amazing job with that location as well too.
well, they're all. I think you went ahead and set the pace on that. As far as the level of what people get for their buck, and I mean, not that the bucks are important; it's the experience. So, when you look at that, look at what you've done over the years with not only, I don't know what you've done with Harriman because I haven't been there.
Right.
Okay. And you pleaded and you begged and you said, Greg, come on, you got to go now.
I have.
I know. And, I'm sitting there going ahead and saying, there's so much I could do and still float without
I
sinking.
will tell you if you plan on driving, if anybody up there is from the north, I've spent my whole life in Chicago. I mean, Greg. I mean, I've been friends for many, many years, and I finally got enough nerve to leave my comfort zone, which was Illinois and Chicago, and move to Tennessee. And I had the opportunity last week with my job to actually go to North Carolina and help out in North Carolina. And so I got to drive, and I don't know how many of you know this, but I got to drive down to North Carolina or over to North Carolina. I guess it's kind of down and over. And then I took 70 on the way home, which is one of the interstate that actually runs through, and I'm not going to pronounce it right, so I'm not even going to try, but it's like one of the national parks that's right on the border of North Carolina and Tennessee. And it was just absolutely, I'm a grown man and driving through these mountains and the ravines and over the river and through the woods. And it was breathtaking. I mean, in all the years I've been alive, I've never got to experience something like that. And driving through the hills and this time of year, the colors are starting to change and the animals are starting to bulk up for winter. And like I said, I've been coming down here for 8 years. I've owned OSP, well, actually 9 years now. I've owned OSPH for 9 years now, and driving back and forth. I've always been so busy that I never really, as you may, got the time to stop and smell the roses. And I always was really, really excited about, one of the things we don't have up in the north is black bears. And been coming down here for years and years and years, and all my friends have seen them. And we go to Gatlinburg or Pigeon Forge just on purpose to go see a bear. And every time we would leave Gatlinburg on Facebook, one would be walking down Main Street the day after I left. And so they've been kind of like, it's kind of like Bigfoot. Everybody's like, oh yeah, there's black bears here, but never got to see one. So I was like starting to question, like, yeah, sure, they're down here. So I was actually coming back from North Carolina, and I was driving through this whatever that area is on 70. I come around a corner, and there's 3 black bear literally sitting on the side of the road. It was like the most amazing couple of seconds in my life. They were just right on the side of the road. I want to assume it was a mom and her cubs, and like I said, they were bulking up for their slumber for the winter, but literally just right there, and almost caused an accident because I'm rubbernecking because Chicago boys never seen a black bear on the side of the road. So I almost ran off the road. Well, then I come kind of around the corner and over this bridge, and there's the waterfall going down the bridge. Well, I look up in the air, and there's 2 bald eagles like circling the road. And I was just like, it's my lucky day. Like, it was just an amazing drive home. And it's really funny. So I come back to join my friends here in Tennessee, and I was like, oh, guess what I saw? And they're just like, oh, really? Like, it's no big deal to them. And I was just like, you guys live in probably one of the most wonderful, most beautiful states I've ever had the opportunity to drive through. And anybody who hasn't been down here during fall, I mean, nature and God puts one hell of a display on down here when the trees are starting to turn and the animals are starting to get ready for winter. And I mean, it is, like I said, it is breathtaking. There is no sight like driving through the Tennessee mountains in the middle of fall. Just absolutely stunning.
Just with what you just said, do you think it affects your locations the same way it does with nature?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. If we're pulling the paranormal into that, I think it's really kind of, I don't know. I mean, our locations seem to be active all different times. There doesn't really seem to be a rhyme or reason. I mean, we've it's kind of neat because being the owner of locations, I get to kind of have the opportunity to be there during full moons, during no moons, during blood moons, during Halloween, all different times of year. And I know one of the things that a lot of people talk about is, well, it's more active on this time and more active on that time. I, over the last 9 years, being able to spend all the time in the hospital, hasn't really seen a trend of, people even say, oh, when the lightning storms are out, it's been more active. I will tell you, I've been in the hospital during some of the most horrendous storms here in Tennessee and not got a single lick of evidence. I've been here on some of the most calm days, sun shining, beautiful, no clouds out, and got 5 times the evidence. So I don't know. I don't know what the trigger mechanism is. Now, I will tell you this, and one of the things that I do believe and kind of will recognize this is, like, fall all the way through spring, in my opinion, is probably the busiest time of year in terms of activity. And I think primarily because the humidity lifts, and just in my opinion, there's a lot more energy in the air that's being able to be drawn out. And if, we're talking about spirits and their ability to draw that energy out of the environment, and you guys all know this, I mean, we all condition our hair in the winter. You put more, lotion on in the winter because the air is a lot drier. It's a lot thinner, and it's a lot more full of energy. I think that our locations become really active in those, early to late fall, all the way through spring. And I think it kind of falls off a little bit in the summer. And I think primarily, like I said, because the air gets so humid and so heavy, and I think they have kind of a little bit of a challenge utilizing that energy that we put out in the environment. That's really the only thing that I have seen that I can really document over the last 9 years is really, like, people don't want to really come down in December or January because it's too cold. But I will tell you, January is probably one of the most active months that we have in the hospitals. And when we're cleaning and doing that kind of stuff, it's just all sorts of things. I mean, sightings of full body apparitions, disembodied voices, activity like crazy. And what's really, really neat too, I think, about owning the location is that when you're in them as much as we are, we all know that everything expands and contracts. You know what I mean? It's just a fact of life, whether it's cement or wood. So a lot of times you'll get popping and banging and stuff like that in, you know, in the winter months because the buildings are going through transition. And it's kind of neat. The more you get to know the building, the more you can sit in the building and be like, oh, that's this or that, or, you know, that's expanding or contracting or whatever. But then you can turn around and say, okay, that definitely was paranormal. Like that definitely was a different type of sound, or, you know what I mean? So it's kind of neat. But as I said, I really, really think the winter months down here are extremely, a lot more active.
So between both locations, you know, once again, knowing all the transition that you went through bringing Old South to what it is today compared to what it was way back in the day when I first went in there, when it was basically a garbage dump, you
Wasn't it?
know, that had a lot of bad things going on, bad
Mm-hmm.
vibes going on in there because of all the elements that were in there. You stepped into Harriman. Was it the same kind of scenario or was it different?
No, Harriman actually, Harriman was only closed for 13 years, and we are the second owners after the actual hospital company owned it. So, and because it was really in downtown Harriman, the city, as well as the old property owners, did a really pretty nice job of keeping it up, and it's not really as wasn't in really the dilapidated condition that OSPH was. OSPH was really in a bad shape because the old owners of the location were primarily pocketing, and you know this, pocketing all the money.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
weren't putting money back into the building. But the old owner was a doctor, and he kept. I think he actually bought it, to be really honest with you, because he had a little bit of what do you call that, a hoarding issue. So he kind of made OSPH his dumping ground for everything. And I know our first year at OSPH, we moved 100 tons of garbage out of the building to the tune of about $86,000 is what it cost us to get out a lot of that stuff.
Uh,
Harriman was kind of just left abandoned. So when the old hospital owners took it, they took everything with them. So there wasn't really anybody collecting stuff or that kind of stuff. Now we did have to go through. There were locations in the hospital that were in pretty bad shape just because of, you know, weather and it being not taken care of. So we did have to do some abatement on some certain things. We did have to get some just, you know, some filth out of there. I think it took us about the same length of time to get Harriman ready, you know, for people to come visit. Because, you know, our standard is we like to make sure that the buildings are clean, safe, that kind of a thing.
right.
So, you know, we really went through and did a lot of work to make sure that we removed, you know, anything that we felt that wasn't safe, and did a lot of cleaning and that kind of stuff. So it took us, I want to say, probably 9 months to get Harriman up for our first investigation, and we haven't looked back since then. We know we've been improving it, you know, ever since. We've got a great team over there as well too. That's ran by Rhonda. One of our Rhonda kind of manages the property over there. But yeah, we're really proud of it. A lot of people come in and when they walk in, they're like, "Oh my gosh, you could literally open up this hospital tomorrow and, you know, and operate it as a hospital again." It's really in that great a shape. There are some areas that we are going to spend a lot of money in over the course of the next couple of years here to bring back kind of to its former luster. But you know, you take a walk down some of the hallways and it's like, wow, you know, it's in really great shape. One of our operating areas dates back to the early 50s, and it's got the green tiles still on the wall. It's got, you know, the operating lights above them, which many of you have seen in our pictures.
Yeah.
And then if you go to the newer part of the hospital, we have operating rooms that I think were built in about the 80s. So it's kind of neat because you can kind of see the transition from, you know, old medicine to new medicine, and how one's a little more sterile than the other, and you kind of get that kind of walk down memory lane. It's kind of, so it's kind of a very very unique building in terms of that. You know, it started out in 1938 and they just grew. It just grew and just kept growing, and they did additions probably every 10 or 15 years. You know, it started out, I think, about 22,000 square feet, and it ended up to be 100 and about 86,000 square feet now. So it's been really, really, really expanded, and
So size-wise, how much bigger is it than Old South?
it's 3 times the size of Old South Pittsburgh. So
Wow.
it actually is a whole city block. Like it takes up the whole, and it's unique. And I don't know if it's something that the South does but it's really unique because you kind of pull up into the parking lot and it's got that same kind of feeling that OSPH does, where you pull in and you see this daunting kind of 4-story box building in the front. And you're like, and I remember the first time I went, I'm like, oh, that's what we're investigating. Anyway, I won't take any time at all. And then you walk over through a bridge and you're like, holy cow, there's like a whole nother block of rooms and operating rooms and emergency rooms and geriatric wing and a psychiatric wing. And so once you actually walk into the hospital and you get past that first area, it's like, holy cow, where did all this come from? So it's a little deceiving, and they kind of build them backwards into, instead of building them forward like we do in Chicago. So it's kind of a very, very unique location.
Yeah, I know there's some people in here right now. Kim Baranski says Old South Pittsburgh is on my bucket list, and she's belongs to a couple groups that we have, and everybody in here right now is all part of that pretty much. You got
Right.
Kim Baranski, Barbara Spear, you have Danny Botts, Carol Garcia, Linda Kruger, and Linda Kruger is pretty much a Tennessee lady, and Becky Evans. Becky's here.
And Becky's our good friend. Hey, Becky. It's really kind of neat too, because South Pittsburgh and Harriman are about an hour and 45 minutes apart from each other. So anybody coming from the north or anywhere that's going to drive quite a few miles, it's really nice. You can actually do kind of a loop, depending on which way you want to go. You can come kind of through Knoxville and you can hit Harriman, and then you come straight down 27 and you can hit Old South Pittsburgh, and then you go straight up 24 to go home. So it's kind of a big loop. It'd be great for a weekend if you wanted to come down like on a Friday, do one of the locations on a Friday, then hit OSP or the opposite location on a Saturday and go home. You can like make a whole weekend of it. We work with a couple of we work with a couple of bed and breakfasts, as well as a couple of hotels who give you late checkout, give you discounted prices. So we've really kind of set it up to be, really kind of a great adventure if you decide to come down and do like a whole weekend event out of it. Because I know sometimes it's kind of a pain in the butt to come down, 8-9 hours to go to one location and turn around and go back. So this way you can kind of make it a whole weekend. And then you want to make an extra day, you can go see our friends, like you said, over at the jail, which I believe is about an hour from Harriman. So you can go up north and hit Scotts County Jail as well too.
That's always a great thing to do. With your groups that have been in there, is there any stories that stand out for this year so far?
Or there's been
towards the
so
end?
many. So we had a group out, and I'm really bad with names. Sorry, guys, but we had a group
That's
out,
okay.
and they do this. They're kind of neat. They're pretty scientific, which I thought was kind of neat. But they came out and they did Harriman one night, and they do this thing where they come in. We give them a little extra time. They pay a little extra, and they do a couple hours beforehand. Usually our events are from 6 p.m. to 4 a.m. But like I said, if you want to come in before 6, we charge a little bit extra. And they come in. I think they got there about 3 o'clock, 3:30ish. So what they do is they come in, they take a tour of kind of the building, they set up all these cameras, and then they leave. And they'll leave for a couple hours. They'll go back to the hotel or whatever, go grab some food, and then they come back. And before they start investigating, they'll actually go over the footage that they got on these cameras that they operate, prior to doing their investigation. And so we have this one hallway it's kind of the nursery. And at the end of the hallway actually stood a hotel that actually burned down. And that hotel, when it burned down, took a few lives, a couple of children's lives, as well as a couple of parents' lives. And we have toys kind of set up in the nursery throughout the building. And they're those they're kind of the touch toys that you have to touch them to operate them. So they had left and they had come back, and he calls me right away, all excited. And he starts playing the video back. And I was like, whoa. Well, you can hear music being played that was kind of that 1930s music that you would anticipate you would hear kind of like in a lobby of a hotel, that kind of a thing going on. Well, then all of a sudden you hear a child kind of laugh and kind of giggle, and then all of a sudden all the toys start to go off in the nursery room. And he was like, whoa. What's really neat about it is the camera is facing down that aisle, or down that hallway. So we verified that there's absolutely nobody in the building, but you can hear all this activity going on, like just tons of it. So they start doing their investigation that evening, and so they go into the nursery. They got the cameras rolling and all their other stuff, and they're kind of sitting there being patient. And all of a sudden, you can kind of see. What was that? Oh, I'm sorry.
You got a storm down there?
No. All of a sudden, you can kind of. No, that's my neighbor's. I live in an apartment, and that's my neighbor's subwoofer going on. Like, yeah. So if you can hear that rumbling, that's my neighbor's subwoofer. Who I'm generally not a complainer, but I've called like the front office because this happens every night, to the point where we're just frustrated. But anyways, so they were doing the investigation, and so they're filming, and you can kind of see like this blurry object kind of like pixelate throughout like the middle of the shot. So it's not the whole camera, it's just an area of the camera. And then all of a sudden you can see the toys start lighting up and start dancing and singing, and it's where the pixelation took place. And then all of a sudden it just stops and disappears. And it was really fascinating because in that same location, a couple of weeks earlier, we had a lady who was kind of walking down the hallway, and she was just popping off pictures on her camera. And in one of the pictures, you can see a little boy, as clear as day, standing in one of the doorways. And the picture is so detailed that you can see, and I'm really bad with this, guys. I don't know what they're called, but you can see his pants on, where they're kind of those bloomer style pants, where remember they kind of were a little bit, maybe 3 or 4 inches from their ankles, and they kind of came out like this. And then you can see his socks, and you can see, remember those old kind of shoes that had the straps on them?
Yeah.
You could see his shoes, and you can see up to about here, and then the rest is kind of blurry. But you could see, I mean, in great detail, to the point where we're all kind of like, wow, it was really fascinating. And this was kind of in that same area. It was maybe 10 feet away from the nursery area. So we don't know if we have a little boy or girl that came from the hotel that was on the property, or if it was a little boy or girl who was actually, unfortunately lost their lives in the hospital and was hanging around. But one thing that we found that was really, really neat is the little boy or girl they giggle all the time. They're constantly playing with toys. So, a lot of people come and like, oh, children, that's so sad that you got, but this little boy or girl is really happy. I mean, like I said, they're in the hospital, they're playing with toys, they're interacting with our investigators, they're being pictures taken of. Really, really kind of a neat situation. So that one this year was kind of surprising because of the vividness of the picture. And then it kind of followed up with another team coming a couple weeks later and getting some more evidence to kind of back up what was going on. So really, really kind of neat.
Are there any particular groups that you have working now that come in quite a bit from?
We do have quite a few groups that are local. And once again, I'm gonna crucify the names, but we got quite a few that come in from Tennessee that are in the area, who do a lot of research. One of them is like Chattanooga Paranormal Research Center.
Yeah,
they come all the time. What's
the guy that runs that group?
Oh, you're asking me the bad question.
No. I just wanted to know too, because I'm sitting there going ahead and saying that he is one of the people.
Yeah, they're great.
I wanted to go ahead and have on the show, and we talked numerous times. I even went ahead and got on one of his broadcasts. He did live, and I got on there and I said, man, I have to have you get on. And it was okay, Greg, no problem. And then
disappeared.
Yeah, I disappeared. He didn't disappear. You didn't. I got so busy. It was like, man, I can't, if I don't have this in letters this big now, I lose. I have way too much on my plate.
Yeah, It's really neat because they're one of the groups. So we had a phenomena going on. And Greg, I've been doing this for 27 or 28 years now, and I love it. For me, it's more of a hobby. I do it, I don't do it to prove or disprove anything. I primarily do it because I enjoy it. It's just something that I really, really enjoy. And so we had a phenomenon that was actually going on in South Pittsburgh for, quite some time that I've never seen happen anywhere before. So one of our doctors' names was Dr. Taylor, and he was actually one of the founding fathers of the hospital. He graduated from Vanderbilt University here in Tennessee, and then got his medical, degree and all that good stuff. I think in the top 5% of his class. The guy was just absolutely amazing. But he actually helped design the building. He did all sorts of practices and that kind of thing. One thing that was really unique about Dr. Taylor, in every picture we have of him, he's holding a pipe, like every one of them. And I know a lot of us I'm not, I don't think even I'm this old, but apparently at one point in time, it was totally fine to walk through a hospital smoking a pipe or cigarettes or cigars or whatever. And so Dr. Taylor, in every picture that he's got, he's holding his pipe. And then so we started talking to, some of the residents around South Pittsburgh and some of the other healthcare officials. And he would literally smoke while he was visiting patients. He would walk and he'd do his rounds and have the pipe in his mouth and be smoking. And apparently it was okay back then. Well, we had this phenomenon going on for quite some time where we would be doing an investigation and all of a sudden you kind of feel this energy, like literally like a static electricity kind of feeling in the building or in the area. And then all of a sudden you would get this big whiff of what was like maple syrup. And none of us really at the point in time really thought anything about it. It was just kind of like, oh, that's kind of unique. Well, then Brooke actually got the idea to, hey, let's turn our flashlights on and see what's going on. So she turns her flashlight on and lo and behold, there's this big cloud of smoke. I mean, just huge cloud of smoke. And we're all like, well, that's wow. Like I've never seen that happen before. Well, it got so prolific and it was happening so frequently. We're like, we didn't know what to do with it. So it was kind of neat, and this kind of ties into, the Chattanooga research group. Is they were there one night and we were downstairs and we were all talking about it. We couldn't debunk it. We were calling all sorts of people to try and come out and figure out what was going on, and nobody could debunk it. So he was kind of in disbelief. He was kind of like, yeah, I don't really know. It was kind of, and I don't blame him. He was kind of on the fence on what was going on. So we were standing in the hallway of Tri-City Clinic, and all of a sudden we were filming. He was filming, had the film going, whatever. All of a sudden we all smelled it. And he turns the flashlight on, and lo and behold, he gets it on film, gets the whole video of it. Then you see the smoke just start on its own. And we're looking at each other going like, I looked at him, I said, see, told you so. So, being scientific, they started looking around, trying to figure out who was vaping in the building, where the smoke was coming from. And, we couldn't figure it out. And I was like, pat me down, look around, it wasn't me. Well, what was really cool about it is we went to a different part of the building, and once again, cameras rolling and all that other stuff. And all of a sudden we smelled it again, and he caught it on video. Just, there's nothing in the hallway. And then all of a sudden you kind of see this, literally this cloud of smoke and projecting like not a cloud of smoke just appearing, but kind of like, where it's blowing out of your mouth. You can see it do this. And then it just kind of starts collecting and getting bigger and bigger. And he looked at me and goes, wow. And I said, wow. And I was like, because I in all the years I've been doing this, I have never witnessed anything like that in my entire life. And this went on for quite some time. I mean, it went on for probably 2 years, 2 to 3 years. And where it was very prolific, where it would happen daily, if not, a couple times a day. It got so prolific when we were doing public investigations, we would kind of sit in the ER waiting room, which is where the body box was, and we'd sit in a circle and we do the Estes method, where somebody was in the body box and we were all, in the Tri-City waiting area. Well, it got so prolific that we had a group of probably 15 people in that room, and one of the guys we're asking questions starts choking, like literally. And we're like, what's wrong? He goes, I can't breathe. There's like this smoke or whatever. Well, we flashed the flashlight over to him, and his whole head was just enveloped in like the smoke. And he was like looking around like, where did that come from? Well, as we're talking about it, and we have the flashlight going, you can see the smoke just like literally going around the room. It was almost like Dr. Taylor was like making a round to
Okay.
everybody that was in the room and kind of
Puffing as
puffing
he
out the
went.
smoke. Yeah. And everybody's looking around at me going, how did you make that happen? And I'm like, I didn't. I'm like, that's not me. I had one guy who actually asked to frisk me. He's like, it's got to be coming from you. I'm like, dude, I will strip down to my underwear privately. I said, you're more than welcome to look. I said, I'll pull down ceiling tiles. We'll tear this room apart if that's what it takes for you to get, me to whatever. So he did. He takes out his flashlight and he's looking above the ceiling tiles. He's looking in the walls and he patted me down. He says, wow. I said, I know. I said, and I said, this happens regularly. I said, we've had groups come out before who are like, they just can't believe it.
Did they figure out what kind of tobacco it was?
It was which is the next thing that's really kind of neat. So we actually got a hold of Dr. Taylor's daughter, which she's still alive and she's healthy as can be and just a great woman. So we got a hold of her and we asked her a couple of questions and she was really, really, real sweet about it. And we told her what the claim was. And she says, well, my father was known to smoke rabbit tobacco, which now is illegal because apparently you get a little bit of a buzz off of it. But she said, does it, and she was the one who said, does it smell like maple syrup? Now, remember, we didn't have the conversation with her. All we did was ask a couple of questions. She says, it's got a real sweet maple syrupy smell, right? And I said, oh, absolutely. And she says, yep, that's my father. And it was really, really kind of neat. So yeah, it was really kind of neat for her to validate that. So, and as I said, and we've talked to her a couple of times in the past about, Dr. Taylor and kind of his mannerisms and what kind of a guy he was and all that other stuff. And he was just an absolute dedicated man to the healthcare, field where he would work 19, 20-hour days. All the doctors had a little apartment in the back of OSPH, but it wasn't uncommon for them to pull, 2-3 days at the hospital and not go home and all their stuff. And he was very, very devoted to, the people of Marion County and all the surrounding counties and healthcare and all that other stuff. So, we kind of look back and be like, well, that man spent that much time in here and this was his love. This was his passion. So you wonder why his energy is still kind of ingrained into the walls and that kind of a thing. And it was just a really, really amazing, experience that we had.
Do you have anybody in Harriman that's equal to that gentleman?
We have a gentleman. Hold on a second. 1 second, guys. Okay, I just want to make sure that.
Tell her I said hi.
She's on her way over.
Okay.
So we actually had so kind of unique situation, and we can do this. It was kind of neat. So, and this is kind of a funny story, and I know Kimberly's from the South, so she'll probably chuckle and kind of laugh at this. Being from the North, we have gun control big time in Chicago. You know that, Greg, where the South is a little bit more lax about gun control, and it's okay to walk around with a gun down here and that kind of a thing. And so it's kind of unique. So when we purchased Harriman Hospital, prior to that, we got permission from the city and the mayor to go and kind of do some investigations there. And the mayor gave us a tour of the hospital and, pointed out this, that, whatever. And so we got our gang together. It was a Saturday night. There were about 8 or 9 of us that actually went down to Harriman Hospital. And one of the claims of the building prior to us taking it over, there was a gentleman who was rather tall that was seen in the windows, and like the locals would call the police, and say, hey, somebody broke into the hospital, get over there, blah, blah, blah. The police would go over there and they wouldn't find anybody. And this was an ongoing situation. The hospital was closed for about 13 years prior to us purchasing. And this was something that went on regularly. Like, the police were constantly called over there for people that were in the windows. And so we were kind of like, oh, but the police had never found anybody in the building. The building was never vandalized. There was really no signs of anybody breaking in. So, the police department kind of scratched their head. So we got there. It was a Saturday night. It was probably about 9 o'clock at night. It was middle of, I want to say it was February or March. So it was still dark, real dark at that point in time. And so we walk into the building and the building does have electric, so we did have some lights on and all other stuff. And we were kind of walking down one of the corridors in the operating area, and Brooke actually saw a man walk through like an area of the hospital that we were just about to approach. So it was kind of neat. So all the guys are like, okay. So we locked the girls in the room, in one of the rooms, just to make sure that that somebody didn't break in, somebody didn't have a gun. So we're kind of walking around and didn't see the guy. Like, once again, he kind of disappeared. Well, then all of a sudden he appears, and I turn around, and all the guys are guns drawn. They're all guns blazing, and everybody's like, "Don't worry about it, Ronnie. We got you. Blah, blah, blah." So we kind of search for this guy, and he's not there. Literally, like, just disappeared into thin air. We searched everywhere, couldn't find him. Blah blah blah. So everybody was kind of like, "Well, that's kind of strange." So we kind of cleared the area and believed, whatever it was or whoever it was gone or whatever. So we grabbed the girls back out of the room, and we're walking down into kind of the same area, but walking the opposite direction. Well, all of a sudden we see him again, as plain as day, kind of walk by, and we're like, whoa, all 8 of us. Wasn't one of us, wasn't 2 of us, it was all 8 of us. We saw him walk by. Well, if you've been to Harriman, the surgical suites actually are kind of off to one end of the hallway, and then you can kind of walk a circle that goes into like the surgical, dining area, and then the locker rooms where all the doctors and nurses had their personal effects, and then you can walk like a loop. Well, we actually saw him, all of us saw him kind of walk this loop. Well, when he came back to the other side, we saw him kind of walk through this little corridor and open up a door and go into it. And we're like, all right, we got him now, because we were in that room prior, and we're like, there's only one way in and one way out. So we know whoever this is, we got him. So all 8 of us walk into this room, and there's nobody there. Like, literally nobody there. We're kind of searching the area to make sure he couldn't get past us. There was no way in, no way out. And I remember one of my volunteers looking at me, and he says, "You're by in the hospital, right?" And I said, "Oh, absolutely." So this gentleman that we not sure who he is, might be a maintenance guy, might be, we don't know, a patient. We have seen the same gentleman in this hospital on a regular occasion, and generally he's in that same area. And what's really kind of what's unique about him is you'll come up the main staircase, and he'll actually be standing there kind of leaned up against the wall that's adjacent to the staircase with his arms crossed, and kind of just wait for you to come up. You come up the staircase, he'll kind of glance at you and then just disappears. And he does this regularly. I mean, people will see him all the time. We tried to kind of ask questions to find out who he was, and nobody really knows who he is. We don't know if he's, like I said, a janitor, healthcare official, patient. We don't know. All we know is that he kind of hangs out in that area of the hospital and is seen quite regularly. Won't really approach you, won't communicate with you, just kind of stares at you. And then you'll kind of make eye contact with him, and he just kind of disappears. Wow. And he's been seen by our staff. He's been seen by multiple investigators, and kind of all in that same location. So kind of neat, kind of a really neat, strong resident that we have in the building that, in my opinion, is kind of overseeing it. I think he's kind of checking up on us to make sure that we're taking care of his building.
You got Becky Evans going crazy. And but, she's a great lady, and
she is.
We know her really good, and
oh yeah,
she says, "Oh, the body box. I remember the one night where WOWSER Worcer. What is that, Becky?" She's a great lady. I don't know if she's going to be in the process of moving. So
hopefully down to the southern states.
No, she was in Alabama.
Oh, was she?
Yeah, right now, and now she's moving up the East Coast.
Oh no, you don't want to go there. The taxes are too expensive.
No, I don't know what they're doing, but she just wants to go, and she wants to be up there on the East Coast near a lot of these other people that are in the group that live up there, and she'll be a lot happier, I think. Uh, wow, she says, okay, that's what she meant. Just wow on the end of that comment. But you know, the all the places and all the people that we met, and still to this day, I don't think anybody can touch what you guys have done.
Oh, I don't know. There are a lot of really great locations out
Yeah,
there that
well,
I've been to that,
there are, but it's. I think it comes into play a little bit a little better when you're going ahead and you know exactly what the circumstances are. You
right.
know, you can go in there and you can be a little more comfortable. Like if you went to another location down there that, there's one down there that, well, you're just another ticket, you
Right.
know.
Well, and one of the things like you, Greg, what I think is really neat is, and I can say this too, is I was hunting Old South Pittsburgh or investigating Old South Pittsburgh long before I owned it. So it is neat because people like you who were there prior to our ownership, you have a real good indication or a real good feeling for what it was like before and what it's like afterwards.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean. And a lot of people who come now, they're like, oh, the building is really in great shape, that kind of a thing. But as you said, they don't. A lot of the people don't realize and just how awful the building really was. And I remember, investigating, you walk in the building and you try to take a deep breath and you'd cough, you'd choke. I mean, there was so much contamination in the building and that kind of a thing. And, we ripped out so many walls and cleaned so much stuff up to get rid of all of that. And like I said, I owe that all to the volunteers and to everybody who helped and get South Pittsburgh back to the way it should be. And, we still got a lot of work to do. I mean,
I
there's still
was I was
a lot of work to do.
talking to a couple people. I think it was last year about the fact that that was the first location I ever had been in where inside a corridor stuck in there was a car.
Yeah.
And that was the doctor's car, right?
That was, well, it was the doctor. It was the doctor who bought the building. So what we found out was he actually bought the building because at one point in time he was a classic car collector. And because there were double doors in the back of South Pittsburgh, he would just drive his cars in and park them in the hospital. And that's kind of what he bought the hospital for, was to do that. As time went on, and I don't want to get into finances, or whatever, but there was a point in time where he had to start liquidating, some of that stuff. So he did liquidate a lot of the cars that were stored in the hospital. And the one that remained was, like you said, was a little Alfa Romero. I know when we bought the hospital, the first thing he did is he reached out to me and said, "Hey, can I have my car back?" And I was like, "Oh, it's in such bad shape. Pull it out of here, get it out of here." Because remember, the windshield was, broken, and somebody looked like they tried to take a crowbar to get in the trunk to see what was in the trunk. What was really sad is he had come, and we had pushed it out into the back, the back parking lot. And I remember I had bought the whole building, so everything in it was mine, everything around it was mine. So theoretically, by law, the car was mine. So we push it out, and I'm looking at it going, "Oh, this car is really not in that bad a shape." So then, like an idiot, I get on eBay to see, what a car like that would cost if it was reconditioned and looked good. The darn thing went for like $120,000, and I was like, "Oh my God, what?" But in my heart of hearts, I did the right thing. It was his car. We gave it back to him. It wasn't really something that, in my opinion, came with the building. It was his. It was the right thing to do. But past the windshield and past a couple of the dents that were here, there, or whatever, the engine was intact. The interior was intact. I started actually looking up some of some of what it would have cost to, fix it and all other stuff. And we probably could have put about $30,000 or $40,000 into that car to get $115,000 return. Would have been a really great idea, but in the long run of it, we got it out and it went back to its rightful owner.
Kim Baranski says $10 says he was the chief of anesthesia. needs to be in control and a commanding presence. That's for that doctor with the
Yeah, the one
pipe.
that's standing up there. It's quite possible. Like I said, we haven't. Harriman is kind of a unique animal because it's been closed for 13 years, and I mean, the hospital was So what happened with Harriman is Harriman, the hospital was very antiquated. It was very expensive for them to put new systems in and all that other stuff. So they basically just They built a new building in Midtown, which was closer to 40, which was closer to kind of everything else. It's kind of more centrally located. So basically in the middle of the night, they just left Harriman and went to Midtown. And I think you have a lot of there were a lot of residents in the hospital and that kind of a thing. And for them just to lose all of that activity and interaction in the middle of the night one night and go from all that activity to nothing, and it's hit 13 years. I think we kind of came along and all of a sudden, took over the hospital. And all of a sudden now you got all these, all these residents and spirits that want to, join in.
Oh my
But I
God!
do have a special
Sure.
guest.
Yeah.
I'd like to introduce you to Miss Brooke.
Hey, Brooke, how you doing?
Brooke just got off work, so she stopped by or came home to do some podcasting with you, Greg. But Brooke actually is in charge of all of our booking. She keeps our volunteers all straight away, and she's really kind of the backbone. She's been the backbone of OSPH pretty much since I bought it. She does all of our PR, and she keeps me on the straight and narrow.
She's been amazing.
Very much so.
She always has been. Ever since the first time I met her.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, like I said, if it wasn't for her, there's been a lot of crying nights with OSPH, and she's kind of always settled me down and kind of been the voice of reason. A lot of people I think don't understand too is, the buildings are so old, and you put your heart and soul into something and you fix the roof in this location, or you fix the water over here or something like that, and the next thing you know, something else breaks and there goes $10,000 more. And or you fix the roof. Like we were up on the roof, I think it was January, literally freezing, because we were fixing a hole in the roof and we're fixing it and got that roof leak fixed. Then I get a phone call, Ronnie, there's another leak right down a little bit from the one you just fixed. And I just get really stressed out because, as I said, I mean, she's a beautiful building, and we take so much passion and so much pride in keeping her looking good. And then all of a sudden she starts breaking down on us, and the stress level gets pretty high. And Brooke's like, "We'll take care of it. We'll take care of it." And I'm always that sky is falling kind of guy, and she's always that, "We'll fix it. We'll fix it." And I think a lot of it too is because I get really embarrassed when we have an investigation or a team come by and the building isn't in prime condition the way I want it to be. Because at the end of the day, that building is the stamp of my approval. And when she breaks down on me, and something goes wrong, it's kind of an embarrassment. I'm like, oh my God, and she'll tell you, we have people coming tonight. What do I do about this? And she's just like, settle down. Our building's in a lot better shape than other buildings out there, or other locations that people, investigate. She says, they'll be fine. They'll be fine. And so I'll give somebody a tour and I'll be like, I'm so sorry that you're here in a drip because, we got to fix this or fix that. And she's right. Most people are extremely understanding. They're like, well, if you would have saw the location we were in 2 weeks ago, it had no roof. So, we're really happy that you have a roof. Or, somebody else say, we were just at a location, all the windows were broken out and you have all your windows in. Or so, I mean, she really does keep me aligned, and as Becky would say, cracks the whip on me when I need it.
You see, that's good. I'm glad you brought that one up because I wasn't going to do that. But anyway, as long as you're here, and I'm glad to see you, it's amazing just to have you on.
Oh, thanks.
And what's really cool about it is the fact that I get to ask you a few questions.
Okay.
And my first question is it everything that you thought it would be?
Is what everything I thought it would be?
Doing both of the hospitals.
It's a lot of work sometimes. But it's not terrible. And it's well worth it. We don't get to investigate as much as we probably would like to, but
Do
at
you
least
go
we're
to
taking
other
care of the buildings.
do you go to other locations if you want to investigate, or do you stay at home?
We stay at home usually.
Oh, we've done both. We went to Waverly not too long ago.
Oh, we did go.
We've got a couple locations. It's
You-
really hard to do that though, Greg, because you know what? And I'm not throwing any names out
No,
there or any locations, but you go to locations and people are like, oh, this is, we're so active, we're so this and so that. And we just don't have luck. Like when we go to other locations and we just don't get the experiences. And then we'll walk back into OSPH or we'll walk back into Hiram and it's like, boom, it's like we get activity. And I think maybe a lot of it too is because, our residents are extremely comfortable with us. We have a lot more experiences in our own locations because I think maybe we're there, every day and they just get used to us. And so they're comfortable with us. And then we go to another location and, it's kind of like, oh, this isn't as active as everybody says it is. But what I'm saying is, and this as well as I do, Greg, paranormal investigating is just like fishing. You and I can throw a bobber in the same darn pond and you pull up a 6-pound bass and I catch nothing all day long. So, I mean, it is what it is. And, we would never walk into a location and say that they're not haunted or anything like that because, people walk into our locations and don't have an experience too.
Do they
And
still
so-
do they still have muskies down there in Tennessee?
We don't have muskies down here.
The muskies.
I thought you did. I thought you did in what was it, the one reservoir.
Oh, I don't know.
What is a muskie?
It's a type of pike fish. There's northern
It's a-
pike and
it's-
muskie.
We may call it something different.
Oh, that's true.
Muskies are bigger than pike,
They do call a lot of things different down here than we do up north. Like
do they?
ask her what she changes in her car every 3,500 miles. Come on.
Oh,
What do you do to eggs before you eat them?
bull.
The hell is that, Greg? Bull. Don't we boil eggs and change our oil? But you gotta love them.
You just enunciate too much. We're just lazy and we just say it.
That's cool.
So she's
That's
right.
right.
The muskie might just be called something different down
Like
here,
we have brim. We have brim down here.
That's
Which-
bluegill.
which we call bluegill.
Yeah, so y'all call them different things. So we may call them something else. Because I didn't know that a brim wasn't a brim. It's always just been a brim to me.
Have you ever heard the word Esax?
No.
Okay,
A what?
that's part of their family name. Is an Esax is a muskellunge.
Mm.
It's a muskellunge.
Neither one of us are fishermen,
Yeah,
unfortunately,
That's
Greg.
for
so
sure.
I don't like to fish.
I feel kind of bad.
I
Look
have
at Kimberly sticking up for you. You can tell women always stick up to each other.
Understood
innocently,
every
yeah,
word
see?
perfectly.
Yeah, jeez.
Then there's one other question that Linda Kruger asked, and she says, "Ronnie, have you done any work in the Franklin, Tennessee area?"
I did. I did, as a matter of fact. It was with REO Speedwagon and Train. We went to
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I don't know if you know this or you probably do, Linda, but Franklin, Tennessee has got a Corey concert facility. That is the neatest thing ever.
But
So-
that's not ghost.
Well, yeah, but it's work. We worked there. We worked at getting there and worked at coming back.
But that's not
No.
work.
We have never worked paranormally in
So
Franklin.
that's like Red Rock, then, huh?
Yeah, very similar. And I will tell you, it was absolutely stunning. The location is stunning. The acoustics were stunning. Yeah, it is a beautiful location.
Thank you, Becky Evans.
She's a
Hey,
great
quit
girl.
picking on the Southern talk now.
I know. I'm sorry, but I'm on the podcast with the Northern boy too.
Quit picking on the Southern talk now.
It's really funny. I do have to say, when I first started coming down here, I heard the accents all the time. Like it was like really like, oh my God. Now I don't even hear it. It's like literally like, what accent?
But he calls attention to it all the time.
Just on certain words that you pronounce. Cool.
I think it's pretty cool.
Pie, ice,
Ha ha.
pie. You want a piece of pie?
Piece of pie.
He's
Pie.
pop.
Peace pie.
I will tell you though that from the north to the south, it is really really a different way of life down here. I really really like being in Tennessee. It's the people down here. Not that they're not in the north, but they're really sweet down here. I don't have to worry about calling somebody honey. Like everybody down here calls each other honey and sweetheart and doll, and
That's not always nice. We don't always mean it nicely though.
the honey you do. No,
Honey,
it's
we
the
don't.
bless your heart.
Yeah. Sweetheart and honey can
You
be
say
taken the wrong way as well.
Sweetie pie. Sweetie pie.
I will tell you, one of the things that you have to get used to down here, Greg, is bless your heart. Because the first time I accidentally made somebody angry, she said, bless your heart. And I said, thank you. And Brooke looks at me and goes, she's not being nice. Like, what do you mean she's not being nice? So she says she's basically telling you F you. And I was like, really? She says, yeah, down in the South, when they say bless your heart, it could either mean bless your heart, or it means go get F.
Or I'll pray for you.
Or I'll pray for you.
That could be taken two different ways.
Yeah. So when you come down from the north, you have to learn to decipher what bless your heart means. Right, Linda?
Well, we'll see exactly how we do in the spring of this next year.
Well, we hope you come down here, Greg. It is it's amazing.
Pete, has he been to Harriman?
The Greg has not been to Harriman.
Oh, you got to go to Harriman. Harriman.
Harriman is Brooke's location. She loves that location.
Harriman.
So that's the inside scoop.
Well, she's got. So we were. It was in the middle of the afternoon, right?
It's like at 3:00.
About 3:00 in the afternoon. I think we were getting ready for a public investigation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we were getting ready for a public investigation, and it was myself, Brooke. We had, and I think you know them. What's their name? Shay and
Grant.
Shay and Grant Bauer. Booher.
Booher.
Booher. You know them, right? Grant and Shay.
Where are they from?
They were from Tennessee, and they moved. I believe they moved.
Florida.
I think they're in Florida now. They moved down to the coast. Alabama, somewhere down there. They moved south. Grant and Shay. They had a podcast like you did. They were big investigators. They become real good friends of ours. We had them, and then we had, and Chris and Josh, which is part of our team.
Yeah.
Well, we were actually kind of all sitting kind of in a horseshoe, kind of like this. And to my right was Brooke, and then to her right was Grant and Shay, and to our left was Chris and Josh.
No, it's just Chris.
Oh, was it just Chris?
Yeah,
okay, it was just Chris.
5 of us.
It was 5 of us. Okay, sorry. And so Brooke puts her, her recording device on the ground, and we're kind of chatting away, and we weren't, we were talking actually about opening a door and seeing if we get activity and stuff like that. And we were just kind of talking amongst ourselves. And so then Brooke picks up her recording device and she starts to play back, the recording. And lo and behold, we get this voice that's maybe a 9-year-old.
It sounds like a young child, male or female, because male voices are really low at that, or high at that age. Or a young, female, maybe 20s, maybe.
But you hear this voice as clear as day actually talk over us, and it says, "Can you do that again?" And the thing that's really cool about the EVP is we all kept talking. None of us heard it. So you hear the conversation going on and on and on and on. And you hear this little voice, just as plain as day, say, "Can you do that again?" Or, right? Can you do that again?
And then he's still talking.
And I'm
so
still
none
talking.
of us hear it.
Yeah. It was.
But it's loud.
It was real loud. And we play it back for people and oh my God. And then I think it was that same evening, we were all getting ready to leave. And Brooke, on the left-hand side as we're leaving, sees a nurse standing behind the nurse's station, as plain as day. To the point where she's going on the internet to try and figure out what era the nurse was from, because she saw the hat and the curly hair and the whole 9 yards. And I was like, oh, that was really cool. And I think that was at the same evening that we went back to that same location with the laser grid after everybody left.
Maybe.
I think it was the same evening in that same location. We brought a laser grid with us, and I think it was myself and Rhonda and Brooke and Chris and Josh. There were probably 6 to 8 of us up there, and literally there's shadow figures going through the laser grid for a good 25 minutes. To the point, Greg, where I actually took the laser grid, I took the batteries out, I checked to make sure that it was working properly, because I was extremely skeptical. I mean, you can ask her. I was like, there's just no way. Put the laser grid back together, set it on the floor in the same exact position it was, and for another 20 to 25 minutes, same identical thing. You see shadow figures walking back and forth and all other stuff, and then it just stopped.
Well, we took a break.
Oh, did we take a break?
And then we came back. We left it running. We came back and it had stopped.
Nothing.
We didn't get anything else.
Nothing. Wow. No shadow figures. And then I think it was it that same night where we did that? You do the haircut, the dun 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 dun.
No, that
was a different night. Okay, so that same location, we had one of our regulars who comes on a public event, and it was his REM pod. So we put his REM pod in a room that was kind of behind us and off to our left. And I don't know who did it. It was either myself or Brooke or somebody who was in the group did the shave and the haircut, where it went dun 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 dun, and the REM pod goes beep beep. And we all stopped and looked. And of course, nobody's got a voice recorder going that night. Or a video or anything, because I think it was after hours. I think we were just kind of goofing around.
No, it was during.
Was it during?
Yeah.
And we all kind of look at each other like, did we really just hear that? Never, ever happened again. But it was that I don't know how long that was going on, a month or two, it was crazy. It was crazy in that location, where it was just, we were getting all sorts of evidence. And like I said, I mean, it was perfect. We did the dun, 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 dun. We were tapping on something, and you hear the REM pod go beep, beep. Didn't make any noise before or after, or just those 2 beeps. And it was just really cool.
So you doing anything else besides investigating, Brooke?
Oh, I work at the Chuck E. Cheese.
At the what?
I work at Chuck E. Cheese. I'm a manager at Chuck E. Cheese.
Chuck E. Cheese?
Mm-hmm.
Boy, that's got to be a crazy place. You must get out of there, and then you pull the cotton out of your ears.
It's really not that bad, actually.
Really?
It's nice seeing that my kids were really good, and that's rewarding. That's
a great way to look at it. I'll tell you that. Now, as far as paranormally and on the investigative side, what are your 2 best pieces of equipment?
I use my phone. That's all I use.
Voice recorder.
I use my camera on my phone, my recorder on my phone, and my flashlight on my phone. I try not, if I'm going to use another piece of equipment, it'll probably be, I like a cat ball and a REM pod. But other than that,
a laser grid. You like?
I do like a laser grid.
Yeah, it has its moments. That's for darn sure.
Yeah, the cafeteria too. If you guys go actually on the historic Facebook page, we have an investigator who's part of our team. His name is Kenny, and he put together, I think, like a 5 or 6 minute video of one night they were actually in the cafeteria doing an investigation, and I think it went on for a couple hours, where they were investigating, and it was all everything was just crazy down there. They were getting shadows in the laser grid. All of them saw a full body apparition kind of standing off to the side. They saw shadow, it was crazy one night. They were asking questions and getting responses with all different pieces of equipment. It was really crazy. And I think he put kind of together like a montage of that evening. And like I said, things that happen in Harriman, I've just never, you're just like, wow, really wow. It's kind of awe-inspiring there.
That's
and like
awesome.
I said, I think a lot of it just goes to show that, the residents, they're just, they've got stories to tell. And I think they want to tell those stories, and they've gone too long without having a voice. And now they've got a voice, now more than ever. And it's neat because some of the things that Brooke and I have heard, prior to us buying the building by locals in terms of, seeing this, seeing that, or whatever, we're starting to get a lot of that stuff that we're confirming that, yeah, this stuff really was going on when the hospital was actually open. We've got a video that we've been trying to debunk for weeks now of a couple of doors just winging wide open. People blamed it on wind and people blamed it on this, and we've gone back and tried to debunk them. And the thing that's funny is that the doors were seated, so they were actually in the I think it's called the frame or the. Well, it was the middle of summer, so the doors themselves actually swelled to the point where it took a good amount of effort to open the doors. And you see these doors just come flying open.
They're heavy.
And they're heavy. Like, they're not well-balanced doors, they take a little bit of momentum to move, and right on video, you see them flying open. Really just kind of neat.
As the nurse showed back up on the 3rd floor at Old South?
I don't go up on the 3rd floor.
She don't do the 3rd floor. We've had a lot of reports of people seeing our tall surgeon again. The nurse that I saw when I first went there, I've not seen her, but we don't really do a lot of investigating anymore.
Isn't she the one that died there?
Well, Betty, which is she's the one who was on the 2nd floor. She was not the nurse. She was on the 2nd floor.
At the end of the hall?
That's Nellie. So Nellie was the patient that was dropped off. She had dementia real bad, and her family dumped her off at the front door, and she was left in the hospital kind of to fend for herself.
The picture I got of the nurse.
Mm-hmm.
That was the same one I thought that was at the end of the hall.
That's Nellie. So the nurse that you're talking about, I believe, is our nurse that's from the maternity ward. That was the one that I saw. That's what made my obsession with OSPH real, because I had never seen a full body apparition prior to investigating OSPH. And what was really unique is that the nurse that we saw that night was definitely an intelligent. And she walked right at me. She stared in my eyes as if to say, visiting hours are done. Get off my floor. And then a couple of people and I actually saw the door open, and she walked through it, and the door closed, and we were the only ones on that floor. It was a really freaky night. So
you've never seen the cat anymore either, then, huh?
No, just we see the bobcat every once in a while. No. We've got a bobcat in the area who likes to have her kittens outside, and every once in a while somebody will leave the courtyard door open, so she'll come in and stroll around, and I think she's looking for food or mice or whatever, and she'll kind of stroll through the hallways, and then she'll go back outside with her litter of kittens.
Well, it's getting late, and I know you guys are probably tired, and I want to say thank you very much for making the effort, Brooke, to be here tonight, because
she raced home from Chuck E. Cheese just to say hi, Greg.
It's always awesome to see you, and I hope he's taking good care of you and keeping you nice and happy and healthy and everything else. And that's the important part. And then you have all the spirit to follow that, which is always great.
We enjoy what we do, and I think God blessed me with my best friend over here, because Brooke and I have been friends for such a long period of time, and then recently we became a little bit more than friends. She's just been an amazing find.
Is this supposed to be an announcement or something?
Well, it can be if you want it to be.
Go ahead.
Oh no, she's just we've been seeing each other for some time now. Once my divorce was finalized, Brooke and I decided to become a little more than just friends, and so she's my girl.
You're gonna leave it like that?
Yeah, that's.
Is he gonna leave it like you're gonna get hit with a frying pan?
Quite possibly. No, but like I said, Brooke and I, she was one of the original ones who started with the hospital, and we became really good friends really quickly. Her and I would definitely chase each other around the hospital, with whipped cream, and We had a very fun, playful friendship relationship, and
you make it sound like we just brought whipped cream. We were having a cookout. There was not just readily available whipped cream everywhere.
Okay.
Well, we should preface it. So we'll go backwards. So Brooke and I were really good friends, and the whole team went to a Mexican restaurant, and this is actually what started it. We went to a Mexican restaurant. She's got a really good friend. Her name is Lisa. And one of the things Brooke gets really embarrassed about is when we go to a restaurant, somebody says, "Hey, it's Brooke's birthday." So Lisa decided to play the prank on Brooke and tell this Mexican waitress that it was Brooke's birthday. So lo and behold, the waitress brings out this big old cake that's got a bunch of whipped cream on it and all other stuff.
It was just a plate with whipped cream.
Oh, okay. It was a plate with whipped cream. Okay. So of course, Ronnie, being, the jokester he is, took the plate and just in her face like this. And that kind of started the whole whipped cream thing. So then we started chasing each other around with banana whipped cream pie that our volunteers would kind of cook up for us. And so every year a couple times a year, we do, some fun things with the volunteers, and they bring food, and we basically chase each other around the hospital with whipped cream, throwing whipped cream at each other. And it just becomes such a great relationship because we were such great friends to start with. And then it just kind of blossomed from there.
I hope you're nice to him after we leave tonight.
Oh, I'll be nice.
Okay.
I'm always nice.
I know that myself. And I still haven't met you in person.
We've met once.
How long ago? Was it?
Like the first time I don't know. I want to say it was like real close to when he first bought it. Like maybe 2 years later or a year later.
Yeah. About 7 years ago.
Okay. There's a lot of amazing people down there.
Oh, absolutely.
You're one of them that, in here, I would never forget.
Oh. God, you got them.
You see, look how she did that. You see how she did that?
Look at you got them so full.
You see, but I'm a grandpa, so grandpas can get away with that kind of thing, right? So I want to thank you both for being here. It was really nice, and we have to follow up next spring, please.
Oh, I really hope you come down, Greg. Like I said, if you're going to come down, when everything's blossoming down here. Like I said, the mountainsides and all that stuff down here are just phenomenal. You'll enjoy it.
Right. So, Brooke, Ronnie, thank you very much, and we will see you next time. And to everybody in the chat, thank you very much. If you want to hold on for a minute, and I'll close it down, and I'll be right back.
Thanks for having us, Greg.
Oh, it's been amazing. Thank you very much. Okay, everybody. We'll see you guys all later on. And everybody was awesome tonight. A lot of great people in the chat. And they're all mostly people that know of Old South Pitt from some people that talk too much about it. And I ain't going to mention any names. So you guys all have a good evening. And good night, everybody.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
You're still
okay.